On the program today, Mitt Romney disparaging new COVID relief bill as calling it a clunker. Entertainment and event venues are about to see new life as Governor Spencer Cox lifts more restrictions. Homeless activist is arrested as they start to clean up a homeless camp. And the BYU students that don't protest but show love and solidarity for inclusion of LGBTQ students. Those stories, and if we have time, some Bitcoin news. Happy to have you with me today. My name is Rich Markosian. You're listening to the Utah Stories Show. But before we get to all of that, I want to tell you about Green Bikes. So Green Bikes is a Salt Lake City's nonprofit bike share that connects employment and residential centers to transit stops and popular entertainment destinations. Green Bike seeks to improve community health, air quality, and increase the use of existing transit infrastructure. Green Bike is a local nonprofit and public-private partnership between Salt Lake City, the Utah Transit Authority, and Select Health, and other private sponsors. So, to date, Green Bikers have removed 5.8 million vehicle miles from local roads. They've prevented more than 5 million pounds of CO2 from entering our air, while burning 76 million calories in the process. That's 267,000 slices of pizza. Seriously, if you want to lose weight, the very best way I can tell you is get on a bike. I did it when I was about 22 years old, and I rode my bike constantly till I was about 32 years old. And a green bike will prevent you from getting your bike stolen, which they didn't exist when I was that age. So I had my bikes constantly stolen. Go try a green bike. You can learn more about them by visiting Green Bike on social media at SLC Bike Share or visit greenbikeslc.org. Okay, so kind of interesting what Mitt Romney is doing. Mitt Romney obviously was not a Trump supporter, was not in any way encouraging or I should say supportive of even Trump's policies, voting against him all the time, voting to impeach him twice. But now Romney is speaking out against the $1.9 trillion COVID package, which is only providing about 9% of the total $1.9 trillion in actual relief for COVID. The rest is earmarks for projects for other states that want federal money when it's coming fast and cheap like it is right now. So listen to this clip right now as our Senator Mitt Romney is grilling the potential new deputy director of the Budgetary Office.
Or actually, yesterday, it went over $28 trillion in national debt. There was a member of the last administration, maybe I'm paraphrasing, but basically he said debt is good. When asked, hey, are you concerned about all this debt and the $1 trillion deficits, he said, no, debt's good. Do you believe debt is good at the level we have and at the level we keep adding to it even during good years?
Senator, I would use a different word. Not good, but okay. I think it's manageable.
Talking about the annual deficits we run of roughly $1 trillion. The challenge is, yes, interest rates are low now, but if interest rates go up and we still have the debt, we got to pay the interest. So last year we spent $390 billion in interest. If interest rates go back to their normal level, we'll spend $1 trillion a year in interest, which would overwhelm our federal budget. I'm concerned in the COVID relief plan that the president, by the way, I fully support helping people that need help, helping states and businesses that need help. I'm concerned that in the current plan, there's a lot of excess that is going to just add to the debt without creating a benefit to our economy or helping people that are in need. I'm concerned, for instance, that under the plan, many states that had no revenue loss or no deficit as a result of COVID and no unreimbursed COVID expenses, that they nonetheless are going to get billions and billions of dollars.
So Romney appearing a bit beat up there. I think he said he had a terrible fall and he bruised his lip and his eye. We wish him a speedy recovery. He made a joke that he went to CPAC and that's what happened. Romney spoke to Utah Democrats. Nothing about speaking to Utah Republicans. He went and spoke to Utah Democrats in the state legislature. and their, of course, wonderful reception among Utah Democrats and a lot of Republicans. It appears from this story right here that he has a 50% approval rating among Utah voters, but in among Republicans, his approval rating, I believe, was 40%. I mean, the guy's a Democrat. It's like, but he's actually ripping into the tax and spend policies of the Democrats. I don't get him. I mean, I really don't get the guy. I wish I did. I worked during the Olympics, and I was a big fan of Romney. I thought, man, this guy is going places. The way he saved our Olympics, and he seemed like the most capable, accomplished leader. And he's not a Utah native. He was governor of Massachusetts, and he bought a house here, and he got elected. Took Orrin Hatch's seat. And I'm just wondering what's going to happen next with this guy, because I was a huge fan of Romney, and I got to say I'm not anymore. He's just pandering to the left, and he's acting just like a liberal, but at the same time now, occasionally he's going to attack, like trying to sound again like a fiscal conservative. But I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the spending budget, it's like I'm almost to the point where I'm just like, okay, you're absolutely spending way beyond what is way beyond our GDP, and way beyond the ratio of our GDP to spending we've ever had in the past. And they're all gonna say it's okay. I mean, obviously, whenever you have a ton of currency in circulation, way more than you had in the past, the natural result is inflation, which is an absolute hidden tax. And if you want to go back and watch the episode we recorded on the coming collapse of our currency and the finance industry, go check that out. I have a lot of thoughts about the problems we're running into with continuous, ongoing spending without any sight of this ending. So I'd love to have Mitt Romney on the program. Actually, I'd like to talk to him. I'd like to find out what he actually believes, and where his heart is, and what he thinks he needs to do for Utah. So what I want to talk about now, and is obviously there's COVID relief and a lot of COVID talk popping up, but Texas and Tennessee have lifted all COVID restrictions now, which angered greatly Governor Gavin Newsom of California, where people are leaving. There's a mass exodus going on of California that I've talked about in a previous episode. We're seeing a lot of those people coming here, just absolutely skyrocketing our real estate prices. They're also heading in droves to Texas. Californians are moving more to Texas than they are even to Utah. And Gavin Newsom is very angry that Texas has libertarian policies where they allow people to make their own decisions about their health risks rather than the government making those decisions for them. And I did, it goes back to the episode I did just a couple of weeks ago. Why is it people leave one place to go to another place? It's an interesting question that you should ask, because people, by and large, vote with their feet. And all these people are now leaving California, leaving the place that they went to in droves during the Great Depression. If you've if you know what happened in the Great Dust Bowl and the times when that John Steinbeck depicted in The Grapes of Wrath, massive numbers of people were moving from the Dust Bowl areas to California because that's where the opportunity was. That's where they could go get jobs, harvesting fruit, working in farms. And California had fewer regulations and taxation than eastern states. Now the opposite is happening, and people are fleeing California to go to more tax sanctuaries like Utah and Wyoming and Idaho and Texas. And I mean, California, it just seems like there's mass insanity going on there. And so probably more of the same. But what we've seen happen just in this past week is Governor Spencer Cox lifted more COVID restrictions on entertainment venues. Very good for all the places that were greatly struggling. Some of my the ones that I love the most: the State Room, the Depot, the Complex, places where you could go and listen to live music. Hale Center Theater, Pioneer Memorial Theater, of course, the Eccles Theater. Those places will now be opening, and they will be opening in large part to full capacity. But there is some problems going on with some of the venues where they're just not going to be able to open to full capacity because of restrictions of being, there's still the 6-foot social distancing restriction. But it all really kind of depends on the Utah Health Department, how they want to enforce the rules. Because if they decide to not do any more enforcement, then we'll just see everything basically back to the way it was. And it'll be interesting to see how that rolls out in the coming weeks. Just to point out, we came out with our new issue of Utah Stories magazine. It's now all over Utah. We got our distribution team back and rehired a bunch of drivers. Didn't have to do like 10 routes myself like I did a couple of months ago. But this is our biggest issue of the year. It's our craft beer issue where we take a look at the craft beer scene all over Utah. And the biggest thing that we see happening right now is beer is getting a big run for its money against hard seltzer. I mean, Budweiser Seltzer is now out. White Claw we saw introduced into the market, and it just absolutely crazy how many people wanted to buy White Claw instead of beer. So a lot of the craft breweries are switching over to seltzers, and it's a weird thing because I just don't see this as being anything more than a fad, a temporary fad. I don't think that it's going to be a monumental cultural shift that people are not going to be drinking beer anymore. Instead, we're going to be switching to seltzer. So we examined that, and then we have, I think this is actually a definite home run issue. We've got a story about a lady in Park City who's working to climb 7 summits, the 7 largest peaks in the world. Great story by Connie Lewis about that. We've got a story about a woman who's been painting contrails, and she has all these theories about what are in contrails and if they're chemicals and cloud seeding operations. I actually met her at the rally at the Capitol on January 6th. And then we've got student protesters who are in a choir who don't believe it's fair that there's athletes who don't have to abide by COVID restrictions, and they all have to do their rehearsals and everything on Zoom calls, and they have to wear masks when they're trying to sing. So anyway, we got a lot of amazing stories in this issue. If you want to subscribe to the magazine, go visit us at utahstories.com and hit the subscribe button, and we will send you a copy right to your door every single month. And it's a great way to support our content and support this show if you like that too. So, with venues opening up, and I went out to a bunch of bars. I took pictures of a bunch of bartenders. It seems like things are actually beginning to return to normal. And I'm so glad to see that, because downtown Salt Lake, if you've been downtown, it's just been very weird during the day. You just don't see people. And then on the weekends, it's just started to go nuts, like crazy amount of people wanting to go dine out and go to bars at night on the weekends. But then weekdays, it was very, very slow for a lot of these bars. And so I actually went out and took a bunch of photos of bartenders who had stuck it out through COVID. I wanted to see how many had actually done it. I'll just show you that picture real quick. I profiled 6 bartenders from the Barry, and I'm so sorry about spelling his name wrong in this, but it's Barry from Beer Hive Pub. These 3 ladies have stuck it out at the Whiskey Street Bar. These are longtime folks at Gracie's Pub, and then we went to Poplar Street, and of course Green Pig Pub and Red Rock. And it was really fun to do, really fun to go and talk to these people. And I'll have more details on that also at utahstories.com if you want to check that out. So, Yeah, and then the last thing I wanted to talk, two more stories I wanted to talk about, is what you definitely notice as you're going out downtown is that the homeless population, one weekend, it's all like, it's all been isolated to one area by Rio Grande where the homeless shelter used to be. And then the next weekend you go out and there's like 6 new encampments that have popped up. And it's a very weird situation because these encampments, we are strong in enforcing to not have them here in Utah, that public camping is a public nuisance, that if you have a public sidewalk or you have public areas, people should not be camping in those areas. But I found a really interesting story where this was just yesterday, where this homeless activist was basically trying to help gather up the equipment and the supplies of the people who'd been camping on a vacant lot that was actually owned by the city. I'm going to show you parts of that clip and tell you about what happened there. So Carl Moore is the homeless activist who's been helping homeless move their tents, their camping equipment, their propane tanks, their stoves, everything they were using to survive the winter. And he live streamed onto Facebook showing the process by which the encampments are removed. And he showed the process where about 12 officers show up. The officers are marching toward him, and they're coming at him, and he's becoming a, smart alecky and kind of saying, "What are you telling me I'm trespassing? How am I trespassing?" And then they explain
destruction. These are the devices of destruction.
The devices of destruction.
Destruction of people's property.
He says it's all about intimidation and bullying. These
devices
people
of
are here, they're hurting
intimidation.
my sensibilities.
Intimidation like crazy. So intimidation,
It's not about the
intimidation,
emotional
intimidation,
stress
intimidation,
that they're
intimidation,
putting people
intimidation.
through.
That's what it is, y'all.
He goes so far to call the Salt Lake City Police Department a white supremacist organization, even while he's pointing out that there's some brown and black people who work there. And so, but then at 17:30, if you want to watch this whole video, he gets taken down.
He's like,
he says,
"Get these people out of here."
The officer says, "You are trespassing right now."
Okay, here they are.
He says, "Watch
Here they
this,
are.
watch this."
Here they are.
He's backing up. I'll just
There
show
they
you
are.
the clip right now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so this is them. See this? How does that feel?
We'll place you under arrest, okay?
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, no, that's it.
Cool. Okay, so this right here.
That means walk out now.
The other way. We're not going to play this game today.
We're not playing a game?
Nope, we're not going to play the game. I've told you 1,000 times.
1,000 times you told me that we're playing a game?
You can go.
That we're playing a
You're
game?
trespassing.
I'm trespassing.
Here, I'll walk you right over to this sign that says no trespassing. You had to walk by to get where we're at, if you like.
Oh, we're trespassing.
Let's go.
Come on, Carl.
Oh, we're trespassing.
Well, you are.
I am?
Yes.
How do you know?
Because
How do you
it's
know?
private property.
Okay, who owns this property?
The city.
The city? Are you serious? The city does
No,
own
no,
this property?
come on, Carl.
Dude, why you fucking push me like that? Fuck it. Don't fucking push me like that. Look at this. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this.
So anyway, obviously this is heavy-handed, and probably the city should designate more camping spots. I mean, to just have that one single area in Rio Grande across from where the homeless shelter used to be, and allowing that to exist, I think they need to definitely have more areas. They need to have a little more compassion for the homeless. We have another story in our current issue all about that, because obviously we cannot have the same policies in place and the lackadaisical attitude that they have in places like Seattle and California, but we need to be doing something. And again, in that video that I produced, the podcast episode that I produced about the Californication of Utah, I talked to some homeless people, and the biggest problem I can see is you've got chronically homeless, drug addict, alcoholic, unable to keep job type people camping right beside temporary homeless people who want to work, who are ready to get out there, ready to work hard, and who are we giving housing to out of those two types of people? The chronically homeless. So as I interviewed a gentleman a few weeks ago, what I found out is that it's the hard-working homeless people who are basically being punished. If you want to get housing, become an alcoholic, become a drug addict. That's what our system is telling them. Does that make any sense at all? Can you explain to me that policy, Governor Cox or Utah State Legislature, our housing first policy where, okay, we've decided you're a big enough loser, we're going to go ahead and give you a house, as opposed to a guy working hard to try to keep a job, to get off drugs, to become a productive citizen. Oh, but for you, we're not going to really help you with housing because you're still capable enough. You're not low enough on the spectrum of being very, very incapable of working, so we're not going to help you with housing. Everybody should be helped with housing, and especially those who work harder. We cannot be rewarding people for their ineptitude. I mean, if I'm wrong on this, or if I'm not seeing it correctly or accurately, point it out, because I don't see how you can see it any other way. Okay, and finally today, very interesting, not a protest, but a student-led Rainbow Day at BYU to show solidarity with the LGBTQ community. Brigham Young University will wear rainbow colors on campus. They did this on Thursday, marking the one-year anniversary of the confusion surrounding the school's honor code. They're calling it confusion on the KSL.com website, but it's the Rainbow Day was created by Color the Campus, a student-led initiative dedicated to supporting LGBTQ students and faculty members. And then they also went up and they colored the BYU on the side of the hill in rainbow colors. And so the letter from Elder Johnson clarified the policy. So it says, he said, same-sex romantic behavior cannot lead to eternal marriage and is therefore not compatible with the principles included in the Honor Code. While Talbot personally would like to see changes and further clarification from BYU on the Honor Code's rules for same-sex relationship, he emphasized that Thursday's event is about support for the community. And so it's a lot of confusion, I suppose, because the church does not want to in any way say that homosexual behavior is appropriate, and they don't want to say that same-sex gender attraction is appropriate. And, of course, the church and BYU is taking a ton of flack for this from the students, from the faculty, from everybody looking at this. But I want to actually point out one thing. I want to point out one thing, which is the definition of the word marriage. The definition of the word marriage. And I think probably I'll get a lot of flack for pointing this out. That it used to be the word marriage only meant a union between a man and a woman, between a man and a woman. That, by definition, was the word, the meaning of the word. And it's not like that definition is something that's been in place for the last, 50 years, and a bunch of ignorant people came up with that definition. That is the definition of the nuclear family and the definition of marriage for the last 3,000 years. A long, long, long time. And what the church and I believe the conservative Christians need to be focused on is the definitions of words. I do not believe the definition of words need to be changing. So the definition of the word man is the next one we're losing. We're losing the definition of a word man. A man should actually be defined biologically as having as being a biological male. And what's happening now is because we've lost the definition of the word marriage, we can say, oh, well, that the same sex couple is married to each other, and we're just going to call them married instead of calling it. And by the way, I believe that same sex couples should have all the same legal rights as married couples. I think they should be able to get into civil unions the same as married couples. But to say that it is a marriage, just as anybody who's been married in a church, and call it the same, it is not the same. It should be called something else, a civil union or a same-sex union. I mean, I just think that they're trying to get out ahead of this one, and they're falling behind because they're not using the proper terminology. Of course, a same-sex couple should be allowed all the same benefits under the law as any other couple. I'm not contending that, but I'm saying that as we change the definitions of words, we are beginning to fall down a slippery slope, because if we say a man can actually maybe become a woman if he feels like it, and that man then can compete in athletics against women, we see what happens. We see the very slippery slope of women's sports now being completely dominated by men who feel girly. And I think that's wrong. And I'm not like a staunch Republican conservative or Christian conservative by any means, but I am somebody very interested in words. I mean, I've been producing magazines that contain primarily words for the last 12 years, and I do not see that we should be changing the definitions of words that have a scientific and biological basis. So again, on this one, feel free to chime in, tell me where I'm wrong, because I believe strongly that we need to stick with this. And what BYU is doing is they're not actually fighting this battle on the right terms. So anyway, that's the program for today. I think that in other news, we've seen a lot of crazy swings in the stock market and Bitcoin and a lot of things that I've talked about in previous episodes with what's happening with the devaluation of our currency due to inflation. Keep your eye on that. We'll be covering it more. Very fun episodes coming up. Doing a big episode on water in the West, and we're going to be taking a look at Glen Canyon Dam. I've been talking about that one for a while, and I've got a very fun episode that I've been working on for already a week. Very visual episode where I go down to downtown and we analyze a lot of the things that are happening in downtown by talking to people on the street, by showing a visual depiction of everything that's going on concerning the church property, the temple, as well as the bar scene. And that episode's going to be coming up in just a couple of weeks. I just got to have more time to get it done. And have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I hope to see you again on the show sometime soon. If you'll hit that like button, I'd really appreciate it. And if you want to share this with a couple of friends, that is the very best way we can get the word out and do more fearless, intrepid journalism, local independent journalism in Utah, which I think that is very important, more important now than ever. And if you'll go to our utahstories.com page and subscribe to our digital newsletter, that is the best way we can keep big tech from silencing us, which we've been a victim of, unfortunately. I don't know why, but we've seen our Twitter feed go to far, far fewer followers than ever before. Our same goes for our Instagram, for our Facebook. I don't know why. I wish they would say why, but we're not able to get the messages out to our followers anymore. Even though you're following us, you probably won't see our posts anymore. So the best way you can help us out in that regard is go to utahstories.com, subscribe to our digital newsletter. And if you want to subscribe to the print as well, that's also going to help us out too. So, okay, thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.